Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Suzanne Bassinger. I'm with Larimer County, and I'm the recovery manager. I was actually hired after the Hyde Park fire last year, and we're rolling right on into this one, to the flood this year. So anyway, I'm only here to introduce Amy Bach with United Policyholders. She is going to be the main event here, but I wanted to let you know, and also the people who are watching this, because we're recording it, we're going to post it on our website, and our website is www.larimer.org, flooding 2013, and also my contact information is up there. So I am Larimer County's recovery manager. If you have any questions, concerns, want to find out more information about United Policyholders or FEMA questions or questions about your roads, anything to do with flood recovery, call me. I can be a point of contact. I'll most likely refer you to other places, but I'm a good first start if you don't know who else to call. So with that, the other thing I wanted to mention, my business cards are over there. You can pick one up. We have other information on the side about the Mountain Outreach Team and, of course, United Policyholders information. So with that, I'm going to turn it right over to Amy Bach with United Policyholders. They were a huge help for Larimer County citizens after the Hyde Park fire, and I expect them to be just as much help now. So here's Amy. We need to switch our mic out. So
good afternoon. Just to make sure, so we have the handout, flood insurance claim base that you should all have. And then we also have some other items that you can pick up on your way out, or you can come up and get them now. If you want to take notes, and you didn't get, you don't have any paper, we've got these journals. And basically what it is it's a diary. It's mostly an empty notebook with a lot of lined pages. But what we did is we designed it to help people who've had a loss keep track of their progress and keep a diary. So my name is Amy Bach, and I'm an attorney and I'm a consumer advocate, which is like if you've ever heard of Ralph Nader or some of your local TV stations will have a consumer person that you can call in, and if you're having a problem with a lemon car or a vendor that's not giving you good customer service, you can call that consumer reporter at the station, and sometimes they'll help you. Well, I'm that kind of a person, but my area of specialty is insurance. So when I got out of college in the very early 80s, I was working as an intern in the legislature in New York, and a whole group of insurers came up and said, well, we want to make some changes to the laws. And because I was the baby in the office, and most people find insurance very boring, they said, well, why don't you go to those meetings and you find out what do these insurers want, and is it a good thing? And I that was my first exposure to the dynamic between insurance companies and their customers, and the way things work. And I saw that on the consumer side, there was a lot of mystery, confusion about insurance, and of course, you have to buy it. Most people, if you have a mortgage, right, you have to buy home insurance. If you want to drive, you have to buy a car. So you're sort of a captive audience as an insurance consumer, and you don't really understand that much about the product, and you just hope you never have to use it. Well, I saw back then that being as technical as it is in insurance, there was a real need for advocates on the consumer side that aren't in the business. So to really understand how it works so that we can give guidance to the consumer and be a voice for the consumer, but know what we're talking about, but not be selling any insurance. And so that if I tell you something today, you can be sure I'm not getting any economic benefit from it. So who I am, I'm a policyholder advocate. So why I'm here? Because I have information that I think will be useful to you and moving forward from the flooding that just happened, and then maybe future events that might occur in this community. And I want to thank Suzanne Bassinger, who, of course, I mean, you saw her here. She is your recovery manager. That's her job, to help you with recovering from a disaster. And she's great. And I had the honor of working with her after the Hyde Park wildfire and the Woodland Heights wildfire in 2012. And I'm sorry that you need us again, but I'm very happy to be able to be here and give you some information. So Amy Bach, I'm the executive director of the organization called United Policyholders. A lot of people think, is that an insurance company? What is that? Okay, let's see. This is a fancy little toy here, but I don't, come on. There we go. So United Policyholders is a nonprofit, meaning that we don't sell anything. So we're here just as an information resource and a voice for you. We're not being paid to be here today. I happen to have a speaking engagement tomorrow in Denver, and I thought it would be good if I could make it up here. I had been working with Suzanne over the phone. I wanted to meet her in person. But the way that we get funded is by grants and donations. We have a wonderful website, and that's uphelp.org. And we've got a few little things that might help you. If you forget our name or the website, you can grab one of these on your way out. They're just little tape measures, but they've got our name and our website. So that's just a freebie for you to remember where you might go back if you need it. So we have a big library on our website with all kinds of stuff to help you fall asleep at night or answer technical questions. And so I'm going to go through a little bit more of what you're going to find on our website. And I really encourage you not to be shy at asking questions, because my objective here is to give you a roadmap, a basic roadmap, and then answer the questions that have already come up for you. If you don't have insurance, or you do, or you think you might want to buy it, or you're just not sure what you should be doing right now, you're feeling overwhelmed, all those are the normal questions, and that's what I'm here to answer. So our website you'll want to go to later on. We are a trusted information resource and a respected voice for insurance consumers in all 50 states. We've been around since 1991. I co-founded it with a gal who had been working for State Farm for 22 years. And we got together in 1991 after a fire in California that took out 3,000 homes right outside of San Francisco. And we put together a support and education program for the homeowners that we now call the Roadmap to Recovery. And so we've been doing this stuff for a long time. So there isn't really an insurance problem I haven't seen in some form. Things kind of repeat. But I learn something new every single day. So insurance is just one of those areas, especially with the flood, where there's just a lot of pieces to the puzzle. You've got the federal government, you got the zoning, you got the mapping, you got the engineering, the soil. You got a lot of little parts to understanding all this. And you don't need to understand all of it, but you do need to have a basic plan so you can move forward. All right, and one of the most valuable ways that we get our work done, because we're tiny, you can imagine it's not like, we're not feeding starving children or cute animals. So our work is something that a lot of people don't right away get. Like, why would there have to be an organization that only does insurance? Well, it's because it turns out to be such an important thing. After something bad happens, it turns out that insurance can really make a tremendous difference in people's lives and their mental sense of well-being, and then of course your financial well-being and your ability to either get the roof back over your head or get yourself back on a good economic plane where you are moving forward. Okay, so one of the ways that we as a small nonprofit are able to serve 50 states is by partnering with people like Suzanne and the County of Larimer. You know, when a county recognizes that we are willing to come and help their citizens, you know, they, then together we get a lot done. Because basically what we do is to hold workshops or serve your needs, whatever they may be. So 3 programs. We've been talking about the recovery program. We also do a preparedness program where after an event like this, a lot of people learn lessons the hard way. Oh my gosh, I didn't think I needed flood insurance, or I have flood insurance, but I didn't know I needed to pay for the contents coverage, or I didn't know I could get more. So we actually have learned a lot in our, with our staff and our volunteers. We know a lot about making good buying decisions. So as we figure out going forward with Suzanne and with all of you what more help you may need in the coming months, we will for sure be offering some educational information on buying flood insurance. Okay, and then we do advocacy work. We fight for your rights. So I think right out of the box, what I'm looking at this week is how can we help your elected officials make a case to FEMA to extend the deadline for you guys to both apply for aid, apply for SBA loans, and to file a proof of loss if you do have insurance, because November 14th is right around the corner, and that's not really, it's going to be a problem for people, especially people who can't access their property. Okay, so that's an example of advocacy work that we will do, where we will say, geez, you know, there needs to be a change in the law or a change in the rules, so we will make a suggestion. We will do what we can with our volunteers to try to make that happen. Okay, so workshops, webinars, and meetings, and the website. And one of the things that you can access by our website after today, anytime, actually, even in the middle of the night if you're having trouble sleeping, which I hope you won't be, we have a forum, an online forum, if you're a web person, called the Ask an Expert. And basically what that is just an opportunity for you to register. It's free, but we just need to make sure that you are who you say you are, and not a spam bot or something. So we have people register so that we can protect your privacy. You can post a question on anything related to insurance, rebuilding, and recovery, and we will answer it. We'll do our best to get you an answer within a week. And if our staff doesn't have the answer, we have a network of lawyers and claim experts all around the country that will answer. And we've been working in New Jersey for the last year since Superstorm Sandy on flood insurance. So we have already had a lot of questions asked, and you can look at questions people have asked and you can look at the answers, and if you don't find what you need, you can post your own question. And your identity stays private. So if it's a volunteer, let's say it's a lawyer that answers it, he or she is not going to be able to come back and solicit you to get them, to hire them, because they cannot see your name. So that's the way we give you the assurance that we're not going to let, you can get information from us at no cost, and I mean no financial cost and no personal cost. We're not going to expose you to somebody who's going to try to sell you something, because again, our goal is to give you information, right? But again, because we're small and because the expertise that a lot of you need is in the professional sector. These policies are legal contracts, and the adjusting process is done by professionals in that field. So some of your answers need to come from those folks, and I don't have them on my payroll, but they will answer them as volunteers. But again, we protect you so that nobody could come back and try to solicit you. All right, so going the wrong way. 2 resources again that we offer. That this one, how many of you have flood insurance? Okay, So I want every one of you to get one of these. The problem is that the book went out of print right before the floods. It's Your Guide to Handling Flood Insurance Claims. It was written by a couple of lawyers out of Florida that the flood insurance program, those policies, are a world unto themselves. And I could talk all day, every day about a home insurance policy. I know everything, not everything. I know a lot about home insurance policies, but I've had to bone up good the last year on flood insurance policies. It's a completely different animal. They've got all kinds of weird rules, right? But this book went out of print, and we, as a nonprofit, decided we think it's such a good book that we paid to republish it, and it's just about done. It's not, when we get the copies, we're going to get a supply. We'll get a supply to Suzanne, but on the back of your sheet here, of your handout, is a tool request form. And what you can do is, if you want us to mail it to you, we are happy to do that. All you need to do is, you can just put a little X through that if you don't need all this other stuff, and just write flood book, and then fill it out and leave it here. And we will mail one as soon as we get them. We're expecting them in a week or two. And I'm sorry I don't have one to give out, but they're really, really good technical books. But it just walks you through the foreign language of a flood insurance claim. The yellow book you're welcome to take. We have plenty, but there isn't a whole lot in there about flooding. It's much more oriented toward a fire. But there's a lot of stuff in there about a total loss. So how many of you had a total loss? Okay. And I'm sorry, I forgot what I normally open one of these with is, I'm really sad with all of you. But I'm glad to be of service. So for the total losses, of course, that book is great. You should grab it. For the partial losses, you're really going to want this book. And then this is a home inventory flash drive that you can request on that form. What it is if you have a substantial amount of stuff that got ruined, you can use that to help you do your inventory if you have insurance. And even if you don't, I recommend doing it for two reasons. If you didn't have insurance and you're going to have an uninsured loss, you want to have the inventory done for tax purposes, so you can take a casualty loss deduction on your taxes. And we do have a chapter in the yellow book that gives you some guidance on that. Or if you're going to be applying for an assistance grant from FEMA or an SBA loan, no matter what avenue you're taking, you're going to need to tally up your loss. No matter where you're going to get the money from, you do want to focus on that. So the flash drive, again, if you're a computer person, that's a good tool, because we had somebody who lost everything, and she did her inventory, which can be very, very time-consuming and painful, emotionally painful, to try to remember. It's kind of like opening a wound over and over. Oh my God, I lost that, I lost that. It's awful. So this thing is, somebody else did the work, thousands and thousands of items listed, and then in a spreadsheet form. And you can go through and check, I had this, 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 and you can customize it for you. And it's just a way of making it a little easier for you to get your inventory done. I already told you about the forum and the library. Okay. So far I've told you who I am. I've told you what United Policyholders is and does. And I've given you the tool request form. This handout is something that walks you through the basics of a flood insurance claim, or just a flood claim in general. So those of you who didn't have flood insurance and have a home policy and are probably feeling pretty bummed out about that situation, and I will touch a little bit on what might be covered under the home policy, but it's tough in a situation like this, and I'll explain why. It's tough to get money under a home insurance policy for a an event like this, which is so purely flood and so little wind. The more wind, the more coverage, because then you have arguments that there was a hole opened in the roof or a window broke and the rain fell. Falling rain damage is covered. Rising water damage is not covered under a home policy, okay? And in this event, where you just had water forever, it seemed like, that's going to be tough. That's tough to get covered under a home policy. But if you did have a situation where a tree fell on your house and opened it up, you definitely want to be making that argument that there's some of the water fell and some of it rose, and if you can't tell which rose and which fell, then it should be covered. Now, you can make the argument, but you have to have had this event cause what they call an intrusion, a water intrusion, somewhere that the falling water came in, somewhere. That's the only hook, really. At first we were thinking, maybe we can make this argument that, the wildfires took out all the trees, and then we call it that denuded the mountain, and then that is what triggered some of the damage. But so far the scientists haven't made the connection clear enough to where you might be able to make that argument under your home policy. Does everybody follow what I'm trying to say? Let me make it a little more clear. So your home policy pays for damage caused by whatever's covered, right? But they specifically exclude flood, right? So they exclude earthquake, flood, terrorist acts. Those are the main ones. But if you could establish that the wildfire was the triggering cause of the water that damaged your home, you could make that argument. My concern, I don't want to raise false hopes. I'm here to give you useful information. And my concern is, so far, I haven't heard a very clear scientific connection being made, by a soils engineer, or that there's a direct connection between the burn scar and the flooding. So if there was, I'd be more optimistic for you that if you don't have flood insurance, you can make that argument under your home policy. But as it stands now, I'm not optimistic. Okay, on the to-do list, drying out to avoid mold. I think everybody is aware of that. Getting educated, pacing yourself while you're here. So you're doing that, so that's great. And then knowing where to get the information. So floodsmart.gov, that's FEMA's flood insurance information website. Then our website, we have a special section for Colorado flooding, and we will be updating it. We are updating it all the time. And then coloradounited.com. That is the website that the governor has set up. That is a central place for information. And I left out an important one, which is the Larimer County. Suzanne, do you want to give that website address?
It's www.larimer.org.
There you go. Okay. So flooding 2013. Flooding 2013. All right, and then we will definitely have that link on our website as well. So, I mean, what I love about Colorado is how cooperative people are with each other. So your county and the governor's office and Boulder County, I think people are really trying to pull together here, and FEMA to get everybody the information that they need. Okay. On the to-do list, documenting your losses. That is going to be my main message today, documenting your losses. And I have somebody want to volunteer what they think that means. What do I mean by that? Anybody?
Don't wash down the river. How do you document it?
Okay, what happened to your property?
Yeah.
Your property. What happened there? What was damaged? What has to be done to fix it? How much is it going to cost? Okay, and that is what I mean by documenting your losses.
What about the stuff that's gone?
Well, that's included in what was lost. Okay, so we're talking about So when I say documenting your losses, we're talking about creating a set of pieces of paper, photographs, lists, reports that defines everything that happened to your property as a result of the loss and what needs to be done to put you back where you were. And that is so confusing to people because you get all involved in, oh, I have to sign up for the FEMA, I have to get my number, I have to, the county, and I've got to get in touch with the utility, and I don't know, and my septic system, and all these things that are coming at you, and decisions, and, you know, and I'm living, and how long can I stay where I am, and, you know, when can I get back in, and can I get back in, and now my, you know, my loan and my mortgage, there's so many things flying at you that it's like that old expression, you know, like that you're so busy, you know, with the alligators that you forget your original objective was to drain the swamp. I don't know if you've heard that expression, but I mean, it's kind of like, it's very hard to keep focused on what is most important. And I think, you know, what often does get lost is that documenting your loss is very important, even if you don't have insurance. Because for all the ways that you're going to try to get money, and there's quite a bit of sources, and I don't want to sugarcoat, oh, that, you know, somebody's going to come and, you know, give you a bag of money, but there is money available, you know, like the federal government, don't like the federal government, red, blue, Tea Party, Democrat, doesn't matter to me. What I want for you guys is, I want you guys to get the money that you need to get back where you were before the flood, which I'm not going to, again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not easy, but you're here, so you're trying to get that to figured out. There's a lot of money available, more money than you'd think through FEMA, but it's can be a big pain in the tushy. Is there anybody here from FEMA? No, okay. Okay, and by that I mean, it's, you know, they have to be accountable. You know, FEMA has to be accountable to Congress, my gosh. You know, they've got to dot all their I's and cross their T's, so they've got paperwork. And that's what I mean by the pain in the tushy, okay? And you got to wait because they have to do their due diligence. And, you know, if they, you know, after Katrina, there was all this allegations that people collected, you know, money from FEMA, and then they double collected. And, you know, so FEMA's they have to have these procedures in place, and it can be frustrating, you know, but there is money. I mean, and you do not let. I'm going to ask, who knows what the deadline is for filing for a FEMA individual assistance grant or anything from FEMA? Anybody? Very good. Okay, so November 14th, right? Do not let that date go by without registering with FEMA. I don't care if you're proud and you don't want public assistance. I don't want to know anything about your politics, but I want to tell you that it's just silly to not apply because you know what? They have a lot of different programs. They have SBA loans, and I was on a radio call-in show this morning with a representative from the SBA, and he said, even if you're not sure that you want to apply for an SBA loan, which, by the way, for a residential home, a 1% or 1.5% interest rate, I mean, that's a pretty good deal. Up to $230,000 you can borrow at that low rate. So even if you're not sure that you want to go that route, don't let that opportunity, don't let the November 14th deadline pass without at least putting the paperwork in, because you can always shut it down if you decide you don't want it, but get in the pipeline in case you decide you want it. So, and there's also, anybody here think that they might have to elevate? Okay, so there's another program that FEMA offers. They have.
Explain elevate.
Okay, lift your house up. Literally, there are people.
How are we going to know this?
Well, right, and this is why I would like the deadline to be extended, but let's just assume that the November deadline is going to stay firm. It might get extended, but don't count on that. Just get your stuff in. There are professionals that will come in and literally lift your house up and then put, you know, ugly, yes, but there your house may be standing after the next one. Piers and posts, pilings, whatever they call, they call them. And then your flood insurance gets cheaper, and you're safer. I mean, people don't like it. It doesn't look nice, but that's kind of the way. And in answer to your question, we don't know yet because, as we were talking about earlier with Suzanne. A lot of these communities can't be reached, right? And so the surveyors, haven't been, able to get out there, and there's still a lot of uncertainty. And some people will get told they have to elevate, and then if you could try to petition, and there's a lot that's going to happen. I mean, I will say this, having been to flood insurance conferences, and I've been in the South, and if you can, it's not as big a deal as you might think to elevate your house. It is a big deal, but there are people who know how to do it, and it can be done. So, and there is some funding available from FEMA to do it. And some people may get bought out. Depending on where you live, there may be some buyouts. But you're early in this process, I can tell you. I mean, I told you, I've been working in New Jersey now for a year, on and off. And the ball's still in play. Things keep changing. Just 2 weeks ago, the state decided that they were going to be able to use community block grant money to give people individual grants to cover insurance gaps. Okay? So if you hear what I just said, you will have insurance gaps. There is no question. Whether you have flood insurance or not, you're still going to have gaps. So we're talking about filling those gaps. Yes?
Back to your elevation question. Who determines we have to elevate, and then will FEMA say we have a grant for that, or how's that work?
Right. FEMA decides. The floodplain manager and the FEMA representatives are going around, and there is a bit of uncertainty. The way, the world, it is a changing, as you might have noticed. And now some people call this a 1,000-year flood. Some people have called it a 500-year flood. It was a big flood. The last time you had one was what, in the 60s? 76. So, I mean, it was a big one. You don't know, is this climate change? Who knows what it is, right? Because it happened before climate change, right? But my point is that the maps are being updated to determine who is in a flood zone and who isn't. And we know that there's going to be some new decisions made, right? But whatever that decision is, you probably are not going to know for another few months, I would say. And if you've already been told you have to elevate, that means it must be a pretty clear-cut situation. But there are two kinds of grants that they have for elevating, and part of my reason for wanting to come today, a little bit short notice, and I'm sorry about that, but since the county is going to be posting this video, please let your neighbors know to watch it. Because what we're trying to figure out is what more information we guys need. And clearly, this elevation requirement is going to be something people are going to want to hear. And I don't want you to hear it from me. I want you to hear it from FEMA and from the flood program. Yes, ma'am.
They're making FEMA like they're so wonderful. But all we ever do is fight with them, and other people say the same.
No, I didn't mean to say that they're wonderful. I meant to say that they are, well, let me put it this way, a lot better than nothing. Okay, I mean, that's really the way, I mean, it's like, that's what I say, like, political, I don't want to get into the politics. They give away a lot of money, and they save a lot of people, but they do have a lot of procedural hassles. And they're not everything to everybody, and believe me.
I was just going to ask you that. When people ask questions, could you repeat them?
Sure, sure. So that question was, I hear a lot of complaints about FEMA. And I understand that because, boy, it sure would be so nice if things could be simpler. And I wish they were. And I think, every disaster we get a little bit better at the recovery. But it's only been in the last few years that we've been able to work with counties the way we are and, try to streamline information. But, I mean, like I said, FEMA has to have its its rules. And Congress is holding FEMA accountable, and Congress is breathing down FEMA's neck. Don't give away money, that you shouldn't, and all those things, so they're just doing their best. I'm not trying to apologize for them, I'm just saying that it's an imperfect system, and but believe me, in countries that don't have something like FEMA, you don't have anything except your own savings and your insurance. Yes, sir.
Have you seen a situation where a home is partially damaged, but livable, but a county or another entity comes in and said, I'm sorry, you might flood again in another 20 years. You can't live there anymore, we're gonna knock the house down. Who compensates the owner
Right,
for
well,
something like that?
the entity that tells them they can't live there anymore.
That would be,
That
in
would
our
be,
case, the
that would
county.
be FEMA. That would be the,
FEMA.
that would be FEMA, that would be, I know, it's like FEMA has gotten to be this huge deal because there isn't anything else. I mean, that is the National Disaster Recovery Financial Coordinator, for better or for worse. So if there is a determination, now your state may set up a program. Like I know New Jersey had set up a program called Green Acres and one called Blue Acres. And not the Green Acres as in, Zsa Zsa Gabor and Mr. Bilberg, the pig and that. But that they actually, I think it's a combination of state and federal money that they will buy you out. But you gotta be in a really risky area for them to do the buyout. That would be that's the last, that would be like a repeat loss, if you've gotten hit a few times.
I've also heard the county is more in charge, like FEMA's already saying, we'll give you so much to rebuild.
Right.
The county's saying, no, you're over 50% damage, and they only want to give you a percentage of your tax, of your value of your home. That's peanuts.
So what I'm hearing is concern over who's making that determination as to whether or not I can rebuild. And we're not going to be able to get into that in much more detail here because we have, let's see. Yeah, wow, okay. I want to make sure I get through my slides. Go ahead.
I just want to respond to his question. In 76, we lost properties. I believe it was the county who ended up condemning and paying us for our land.
And the
Okay.
county has
And
a
it
flood
became-
board.
It became Larimer County. I thought, well, what about the
Maybe at the end of your presentation, I can do a complete statement.
That would be great. That would be great. So let me try to blast through my slides to make sure, because if this is the pressing issue, I think we want to have some time to come back to it. Okay, so documenting your loss, there's no like one way to do it, right? Oops, oh dear, what happened here? All right, hang on. Let's see.
Must be our manifest.
Okay, how did we? All right, I don't know where the computer is that's driving me.
Right back there.
I don't know. Ah, yes, you are right, sir, you are right, okay. Let's get back to. All right. Not funny. Mind of its own, right? Okay. Come on. Oops. Okay, boy, we haven't gotten very far in my slides. Oh, we're gonna go a little faster here. All right, so document your loss is making a list of all of your stuff. Now, and certainly, like how many of you already have had a flood claim adjuster give you a proof of loss to sign?
Oh, not approved.
Not
An estimate.
An estimate, okay. Fine, you can take that, but that's a point of information. That may not be the be-all, end-all. And what we recommend is that you get some of your own estimates from local builders. And because
Our house is inaccessible.
Okay, so that's when you need the extension. You need to request the extension. Because what happens is, you know, the flood claim adjusters that your flood insurance program brings in vary in experience and quality. They're freelancers. And when there's a disaster, they can sign up to come out to that.
How do you file for the extension?
Well,
Because we
that,
can get this.
right, that's where you gotta write and call your congressional, you gotta call your congress people. Because it's a federal, Congress has to put the pressure on.
But we're a short day.
I know,
60
I know,
days, so how
I
do
know.
you get it?
You gotta call, I would suggest that you call your senator and your congress people and say, please, if you need that deadline extended.
And the county's gonna work on
And the county is gonna work on this.
Raise awareness any way you can.
Right. So, I mean, folks in New Jersey have been doing all kinds of things. Lawn signs, free media publicity, anything you can do to make noise. And they'll do it, it's just, you know, they're busy. Okay, so, so professional experts that you might need. You might need a soils engineer to give you a report. You might need a mold remediation expert to come in and do a report. The more, you know, insurance companies they love proof. So the more proof you can give them of what your losses were, the better. And why we don't recommend relying 100% on the insurance company adjuster is that, like I said, some of them are very experienced and some of them are not. And they often go off of a computerized estimating program. Some of them use something called Symbility, some use something called Xactimate. It looks damn fancy, you know, it comes out this thick with all these numbers and stuff, but you know, like they say, garbage in, garbage out, and just because it looks fancy doesn't mean it's right? And who is in the best position to tell you how much it's going to cost to tear off the drywall, replace the studs, repaint, get it clean? Well, who's the best person to tell you how much that's going to cost? The guy that's going to do the work. The local guy that knows how much it's going to cost him to get the 2x4s at the, you know, lumber yard, where maybe now the prices have gone up because it's in higher demand and all those things. There's no substitute for getting damage estimates from real people that are going to do the work. And you know, the tricky part there is a lot of these guys and gals are in short supply right now. Of course, everybody wants the good people, and again, that's why you need that extension. You know, and the tricky, again, the part about the flood insurance proof of loss form is with a home insurance claim, you can write undetermined. You know, it says total amount of your loss, and if you don't know it, you can write undetermined, and you sign it, and you can submit it, and you've complied with the requirement that you file a proof of loss within a certain time, right? Because just like the federal government, insurance companies they love paperwork too, and they need to have the proof, and they need to have it all written out. Well, the problem with a flood insurance proof of loss, you cannot write undetermined. You gotta state that number. And that is so hard for you guys right now, because who the heck knows at this point? I mean, you're still early. You know, some people can't get out to their places, and you know, some people haven't been able to get a professional to go out. I mean, maybe you can access it, but getting a contractor to go out there, I mean, my gosh, you know, I mean, just getting them to call you back is hard enough, let alone getting them to get out, you know, out to your place, and maybe they have 10 other jobs. So, but you gotta try. I mean, you have to try.
What if you were to write in the value of your policy as the full amount, as the damage, and let them knock that down?
You know what? I actually think that if you don't get the extension, that is not a bad idea. You know, because and we're gonna, when we get to the slide, a little bit later, I'm going to show you what the form looks like. We can let's go back to that. So how to avoid problems. Stay organized, keep a diary, grab one of our journals, and just be meticulous. Every day, write down, you know, call Joe Weebuldum, and, you know, left message, you know, call the adjuster, whatever. Just keep track of who said what to whom. You know, adjuster said, don't worry about this, or, you know, mold guy says, you know, we need to test for that or that. Keep track. You had a question?
this November 14th
Yeah.
is based upon the date of the flood, and that's 60 days later.
Right.
Is that right? But you don't have to have all this other information at 60 days, within 60 days.
You know, technically, you're supposed to. Technically, you're supposed to put your proof of loss in with your documentation. Now, look, the flood program, like those people don't get, the people who actually work for FEMA, for the National Flood Insurance Program, not the adjusters, but the people that actually sign the checks, you know, they want you to get your money. Believe it or not. That's different from the adjusters. They have a bit of a different kind of thing going. So if you can, I don't want to say that I know they're going to extend it or not. I would be surprised if they didn't, but I wish they would hurry up and do it, because I would be nervous too if I were you. But if they don't, put in the best that you can, and then you can always appeal. You can file an appeal, and you can try to get to a human being. I mean, FEMA wants you to, they say, you know, they said it on the radio this morning, they said, call us, and we will help you. So take them at their word, give them a chance to help you. Ma'am?
Our FEMA claim adjuster's not even coming until November 10th.
Right. See, that's the thing. I mean, I think, you know, that is the #1 order of the day. Okay, so get in the habit of writing letters, cooperate. Of course, I know you all cooperating. Advocate for yourself by being polite but assertive, and creating that paper trail, all right? And getting help when you need it. You're not alone. You've got a wonderful recovery manager here, and then we will be a source of information for you. And there are professionals that will be able to help you, but we're going to talk about that quickly later. Sample letters on our website for asking, getting answers, keeping a claim progressing towards settlement. The extensions of time on the flood part are a little harder because the adjuster doesn't really have the authority. They don't have the authority to extend that deadline. Only the program can with approval from Congress. Then, so, yeah. So that's why I said you gotta make a sync with your federal.
Can you print those forms off of your website?
Yeah. Okay. So we're not going to go into a lot of detail about the National Flood Insurance Program, but just know that the private insurance companies stopped selling flood insurance in the 60s. So the federal government, you know, I think in some ways you could say pretty kindly said, okay, we're gonna make a program. I mean, it's a mess, but it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing, because if they hadn't, right, then you'd have no flood insurance. Okay, no one here has Lloyd's, correct? Oh, okay. So there is some private flood insurance available, and if you can get that for the next time around, and I hope you don't need it. I hope. Well, don't go on the rumors. Just call. Oh, you did. Oh, you did. Okay. That they wouldn't. They're picky. They're picky. They're very picky. Okay. When I say it's a mess, I didn't mean to be casual about that. What I meant is that the flood program has limits and rules. And because of it being a public entity controlled by Congress, it moves slower than you'd like, because Congress writes the policies, Congress sets the rates, Congress, you know, is the boss, and so that makes it move a little slower. Okay, so your flood policies have different rules. You don't have additional living expense. Contents is an add-on and is paid on actual cash value only. So not. So one area where you may have to push and fight a little is to get a fair depreciated value for your stuff, because adjusters love to overly depreciate, meaning they say this couch, they love to try to find shortcuts to depreciate. So ACV, actual cash value, what a willing buyer would have paid you the day before the loss for that object, okay?
What about meeting codes?
Mint codes?
Meeting codes.
Oh, you said mint codes. I could read. Meeting codes. We'll try to get to that in a minute. So ALE, So adjusters they'll look for shortcuts, all right? The guys, that are adjusting your losses, some of them have been doing it for 30 years and they really know their stuff. Some of them have been doing it not very long at all and they don't know their stuff. And so they look for shortcuts to try to, they want to get in and get out. They want to move, they want to close your claim as quickly as they can. And they do get paid a commission on what they pay you, but they also will get dinged if they overpay you. They will personally, those adjusters, if they overpay you on a flood loss, and then it gets audited, and then they come back and say, oh, you overpaid, that adjuster sometimes has to pay it out of their pocket. So that is one reason why they say, oh, but we get paid a commission on your loss, so we're not lowballing you, because why would we do that? The answer is that the overriding objective for them is not to get dinged personally for overpaying and to close that file and move on to the next one. So that's why you have to be your own advocates. It's your property. You've got to do the documenting. You've got to get those reports. You've got to prove to them what you think is the fair amount that they owe you. And that's where that little book will help you, the flood claim handbook, and that's where we can help you. Okay, so that's what I said. These guys are independent adjusters, right? The proof of loss, we've talked about that. It has to be sworn and reasonably complete, meaning you sign it and say, I declare that this is accurate. You can file supplemental claims, meaning later discovered damage. So for a lot of you, you do your best by the November 14th deadline, and then if you discover more damage, you put in a supplemental claim. So don't panic or worry. I'm just trying to, give you the best course that we see. All right, this is the proof of loss form that you file under a flood policy, and this is. You can't read it, but this is it's 09. That's the basic one. And your adjuster should have given you that, the flood adjuster. If he or she didn't, you can get it off of our website, or you can get it off of floodsmart.gov or NFIP. There's all kinds of places you can find it. If you just Google NFIP proof of loss form, you'll find it. It's all over the place. Well, you fill it out. So you've got full amount of insurance, right? Full amount of insurance. That would be your $250,000, right? Actual cash value. Now, if you don't know the answer, you can't fill it out, right? You just do it as best you can. You do it as best you can. Full cost of repair or replacement, that's the key, right? Most of you are going to be underinsured. So if you had a pretty serious loss, right, or a total, you do your best to figure out what the full replacement cost of your home is, and then let them worry about what they say is not covered. But you claim what you believe is the damage.
You turn this into the insurance?
Yeah, to the you give that to the adjuster. If you can't find him or her, then you send it in to the flood program itself. But your adjuster should be giving you all this information. Okay, no, huh? Sir?
Yeah, we have a 2-bedroom, a laundry room, and a bathroom.
Okay.
The lower level of our house.
Yeah.
The adjuster give us one outlet and one light switch. Now, come on.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Some of these adjusters.
Well, he's allowed 40 minutes to property. It was an hour late.
That's the thing. They have too much.
It's a very false adjustment to begin with.
I agree. I agree.
How are we going to change it?
Well, you appeal. And if necessary, you hire a lawyer. I mean, I understand. And that's why I'm here. We're going to try, all you can do is take your best shot at getting a fair outcome, right?
And we get back to the floodplain. When we bought our property, we had the county that we were out of the floodplain.
Mm-hmm.
He told us, well, it was changed 2 years ago. Who was going to tell us it was changed? Whose responsibility is this?
Well, do you have flood insurance?
No.
You didn't have
Out of the floodplain.
Right, right. And you don't have a loan, right, and your lender didn't, usually your lender will. And this is part of the problem with the fact that the maps have been outdated. I know, it's.
Well, who was responsible to let us know?
I can't,
Fed? Who?
I really don't know.
The FEMA guy told me, he said, well, we put it in the media, you should have read it.
Yeah.
It was Mississippi and Missouri.
All right, so this is another one of the forms that for if you are doing the depreciation that I was talking about. So, and let me just finish on that. If the adjuster has not given you enough, if you feel like they're undervaluing your stuff, then you counter that with something in writing that says proof of some kind. You know, here is a picture, you know, you had a Christmas party, and here's a picture of the couch, and it looks good. You know, that's fine. Any proof you can find to show the value, or you have a receipt, or you know where you got the thing, or you can establish by plans or something that there was more than one outlet, then that's the stuff you got to give back. Yes, ma'am?
How do we know as far as the construction aspect of it? You know, my adjuster's giving me a dollar amount, and
You got to get an estimate from a builder, a local
how
builder.
do you do that if you're not, you have no access to your.
Okay, so the question is, if you can't get access to your house, how can you get somebody to inspect it and give you an estimate? That's a great question.
He came over on an ATV with me. The adjuster did.
He did. So can you get?
It came in really low on a lot.
Right, right. Well, I think you need to you need to put in writing that I believe you have underestimated the value of my dwelling repair, and I will be providing supporting information of the true value, but I cannot access the property. So I am requesting an extension of time. Now, you know, they ask for it. He may come back and say, I can't, but at least you've gone on record saying, I'm in an impossible situation here, and I'm doing my best. That's all you can do, is do your best. And you know, as long as you keep doing your best, and not, you know, not let too much time go by without at least trying to do something. You know, if you can document, I called again, and you know, I mean, they're not trying to, they're not out, you know, I honestly don't think that the flood insurance program is trying to cheat you. They just are trying to follow their rules to keep going, you know, and that's okay. So what's the matter?
No, it's okay.
Okay, all right. So let me keep going through here. Okay, common questions. Is any of the mud, water, slide damage covered under my home policy? Only damage that arguably did not result from a flood would be covered under the home policy. So there may be some policies. Home policies, all home policies provide ALE, additional living expense. I can't use my house, and sometimes you call it loss of use or temporary living expense. But flood policies don't give you that, right? So could you get some of that under your home policy? Well, it depends on the wording in your policy. And we've been looking at a lot of different policies that have different wording. So look at the wording in your home policy, right? If you can't use your home because of a mandatory evacuation order, and you can make an argument, I get ALE. It may not be a lot of money, it might be, but it could be, you know, it could be something. I'm out of my house because of a mandatory evacuation order or government declaration, whatever wording you want to use. Some policies, you could make the argument that it's covered under your home, just that bit. It's not a lot, or there may be some coverage for spoiled food due to the electrical. You know, you say that the electricity went out, not because of the flood, but because the power station failed, or something like that. You know, again, you're looking for the non-flood cause, and you can try to be creative, but that's a tough one. All right. Whose responsibility is it to investigate the damage and tally up repair costs? It's yours. I mean, it's your home, your property. You got to take somewhat of a proactive approach. Even though there's an adjuster that comes out and gives you this sense of like he's going to do it, our message is you're better off getting a second opinion on your own, because for most people your home is your biggest asset, and very often these estimates, especially the first round that you get from the adjuster, comes in low. Yes, ma'am.
You act like we have all the time in the world. Fill out this, do that, when we're trying to clean up our.
I know.
It's disgusting.
I know. Believe me, it's painful, and that's why I kept saying I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I wish it hadn't happened, but all I can do is try to give you guidance to try to keep a forward momentum. And so, and the reason I emphasize doing things yourself is a lot of people have this mindset from watching commercials that, you know, State Farm is there, and you know, I mean, in this situation, nah, not so much. And so you really have to be an advocate for yourself, you know, because even though State Farm, they used to be involved in and I'm not trying to pick on them. I mean, you know, they're not even in the program anymore, but Allstate is. They still are involved. The private companies are involved. So when I said earlier it's a mess, what I more meant was it's complicated. It's just complicated. So you have to try to almost have like a, you know, you have to get to I know it's easy for me to say, I'm not in your situation right now, but if you can detach a little bit and just say this is a very unfortunate process, and I'm just going to pace myself, and I'm just going to try to take it one day at a time, one step at a time, and you know, I don't blame you for feeling frustrated. Okay, sure.
Do the estimates have to come from a licensed plumber, electrician?
I would, because you're wasting your time giving an insurance company an estimate from your brother-in-law.
So
you're wasting your time. They're going to be like, I'm not going to, you know, I don't trust this guy. He's your brother-in-law. You know what I mean? Yep. So I would go licensed. I go reputable. I go, you know, in local. I really like if you can't find somebody local, that's okay. I mean, guys will come in from out of state. That doesn't make them shysters. But you do need to do your homework and check them out before you hire them. That is for sure. People think it's amazing. You know, people are like, oh, you know, who could possibly prey on a disaster victim? You know, believe me, plenty of people will. So be careful out there with who you hire. And okay, so if I didn't have flood insurance for this event, can I buy it for the future? Maybe. And it's most people, it's more of a question of, can I afford it? But don't go on rumors. I mean, you gotta call. There's an agent in Denver, Matt Herr, with, I think it's called Flood Advisory Services. Again, if you just Google Denver flood, is that who you called? You know, they specialize in flood insurance, and, you know, get a quote, find out, you know, before you decide. But there is a 30-day waiting period for it. And if you have it now, do not let it lapse. Do not let it lapse. Why?
Renewable in first part of November.
You got to keep paying that premium. You got to, and I'll tell you why. Because
it requires an elevation certificate and photos of a non-damaged house. How's that going to happen?
do you have an insurance agent that you're working with? Try to get them to help you. What are they saying?
No,
she had no idea.
I have no idea.
Well, try to just pay the premium.
Besides that, it was my mom's.
Yeah.
She just passed away.
Oh, gosh. You might want to consult with a lawyer, because there's a lot of paperwork involved in this stuff, and contracts. And well, all right, I'll talk about that. What kind of lawyer? In this situation, I would go with a lawyer who does insurance-related work on the policyholder side. meaning somebody who knows how to read an insurance policy and a contract and will give you guidance. Now, there aren't a whole lot of them out there, but the ones that we know that are in Colorado, you will find in our Find Help directory at our website. There's about 6 Colorado law firms. They're all, and I don't endorse them. We're not fronting for them, but they support our organization and they volunteer, and most of them have been people are getting up to speed quickly on the flood program. I mean, I've been teaching continuing education for lawyers in New Jersey because hardly anybody knows that much about it. But the guys that are listed on our website, at least they know about insurance. They definitely know about insurance. So I would start with one of them. Okay, and then of course they're going to know about estate law with the documents that have to be executed for power of attorney from your mom and all that. Okay, help is available. So the higher ups above your adjuster, if you can get your adjuster supervisor's name and number, that's a very helpful thing. Your local, state, and elected officials, our program. There's something called a public adjuster. Has anybody here ever heard of a public adjuster? Okay. Well, a public adjuster is somebody that you can hire to be your negotiator with the insurance company and to package your claim. Now, they can be a lifesaver and a time saver, like they could take it off your plate. They work on a commission basis, so whatever they recover for you, that's what they get paid. They don't charge you hourly. The problem with hiring one of them for, well, the first, if you're going to hire one, you check their references, and I don't mean just reading them. I mean you call. You call. Did this guy do a good job for you? Really? Okay, great, right? Because ethics, very important. Somebody could sign you up. Oh, I'm gonna do this for you. But then if they get busy, and then suddenly you don't hear from them, and then the insurance company's communicating with the adjuster, not with you, and all that. So if you did hire a public adjuster, you have to do very, very careful homework, and then their fee has to be tiny. Like on a flood claim, it's got to be like no more than 5%, in my opinion, because the benefits are limited, right? So if they're going to help you chase after every dollar, their fee should be about 5, maybe 7%. But we ran into people in New Jersey who hired public adjusters for 40% on a flood claim, and that's just. There's no way you're going to come out whole on that. No way. And any adjuster who tries to sign you up on a 40% on a flood loss, I would not spend that much time with that person because the math isn't going to work. Okay, so then they're not around. I think most of the time, if I go into a community like where there's been a wildfire, they'll be all over the place because they can with a fire policy, there's a lot more money available for them to get, a piece of. With these flood policies, a limited pot of money. So even though, and I'm not trying to make light of the time you have to put in getting the estimates. I understand it's hard, but you got to do that to get the money out of these policies because you've got to push back a little bit because these adjusters, like this gentleman said, a lot of them, they aren't even getting enough sleep. They are running around, they got too many files, and they just want to move on. So it's your property, you got to say, I'm sorry, there's no way I can put this back for that amount. Or, I'm sorry, you missed a whole section of this room. Or, this is not a basement, it didn't have all 4 walls, or whatever argument you feel that you can make to get those numbers up, okay? So,
all in writing.
Right, and she said, do this all in writing, paper trail. Okay, so we've got case managers. Do we have some case managers here in the back, or charitable? Okay, well, there will be some case managers in this community that will be working, and we will be feeding them information as well. And you'll get their information through the county's website that it was again, flooding 2013. Okay. Neighbors and friends, we've said you're going to register with FEMA. We talked about the deadline. Here's a phone number. 1-800-621-3362, or online at disasterassistance.gov. The SBA loans have that same deadline. All right? Options for resolving disputes. You're going to go up the chain of command. Like I said, you get the boss of the boss of the boss, same as the old boss. Appeal within 60 days of if the flood insurance company says we're not paying or we're only paying half, that is a denial, and that starts a clock running. So you got to go back and say, I don't agree, or I don't accept, I'm appealing. Let them know in writing that you don't agree. There's different processes, appraisal, lawsuits, and again, you'll get a lot of this information on our website. Okay, those proof of loss forms, we've already gone over all this. We're not going to go over it again. Frequently heard, I didn't think I needed flood insurance. I was told I didn't need flood insurance. I thought contents coverage was included. I don't have enough money to elevate. I was never told I could buy excess flood. I would have bought it. Now, is there a scenario where you could have redress? Like you say, whose fault is it that I wasn't told? Well, if you went to an insurance agent or broker to buy insurance and they said to you, you don't need flood insurance, and you have proof that they told you that and they talked you out of buying it, if you have proof of that, you might be able to recover from that agent or broker's insurance. They have errors and omissions coverage, but most people don't have that proof. And a lot of the time, that just conversation just doesn't happen, and if it does, there's no record of it. So these are things we hear. There's not a solution, all right, for all of them. But will my agent or broker help with my claim? Sometimes. If they're good, they will. But a lot of agents and brokers don't really understand much about flood insurance. So that's just the reality. It's a foreign program to them. But there is this gentleman in Denver who knows a lot about it. Flood insurance, why didn't they recommend it? What's the law? Well, you actually have pretty good law in Colorado on an agent broker's duty. So like you could make a claim, but you'd have to have that proof that they talked you out of it. Okay, we've already talked about what may be covered under your home policy. A couple quick reminders. We're going over time here. Do you want me, Suzanne, do you want to cut, should I cut off?
Just when somebody keeps us out of here.
Okay, fine. Reminders. An insurance policy is a legal contract, but there are laws on how it gets interpreted. A lot of people on the East Coast are having battles with their flood insurance adjuster over the foundation damage, the earth movement exclusion. Hopefully you're not going to have that, but those battles are in play right now. So if you get into a situation where your adjuster says, I'm not paying for this damage because it was pre-existing, or it was earth movement, those are not resolved. So that would be a situation where you definitely want to consult.
What's earth moving?
Earth movement is earth moving. It's like, that the soil moved, which...
Well, like the creek is under a lot of our foundations now.
Oh.
So the river is changing.
That's earth movement, I'd say.
Now, the house is fine.
Right.
The river is now underneath.
Right. Well, so our argument is, if you insured me against flood, that's what happens in a flood. Right. Things move. So that's why I said this is, if you feel like, if your gut tells you that the position that the adjuster's taking just doesn't seem right or doesn't seem fair, then you should pursue it, and not just sleep on it. Okay, an insurance claim is a business negotiation. If you have leverage and proof of what you're entitled to, most things are negotiable. This is less true with NFIP claims. But still, when it comes to documenting values, you can absolutely push back with good proof of the value of the actual costs. Okay, and what is speaking up? Strong as possible under the circumstances. Politely assertive. You get more flies with honey, right? Even though you're mad or you feel frustrated, you don't feel like being very nice. If you can try to, calm down before you talk to the adjuster, that is generally a good plan. Not always possible. educated and empowered. Well, here you are asking questions. You're all doing the right thing right now. Keeping that claim diary, as Carrie suggested, putting things in writing. Unwilling to be shortchanged and proactive. That's, you're going to go home, you're going to call your elected officials, and you're going to say, we need that extension, okay? This is just a quote about, from the Boulder County Recovery Manager about the work we did together. We're glad to have the opportunity. We really appreciate Suzanne and Larimer County bringing us in. And I am going to wrap up so that Suzanne has a chance to make a few points.
We have some time for questions, if there are insurance questions or airplane questions.
Okay. Okay? Yes?
I have one that affects many of us in the Glen Haven area. It was roads built 100 years ago.
Right.
At the time, it was a 50 years ago, 40 years ago, they formed an association to come grade the road once a year. Multiple places, Fox Creek, North Fork, what was the roadbed is now the creek. So the issues are the creek has changed course. The creek often comes down driveways, under foundations. It's considered in some ways a private road now. And Commissioner Steve Johnson came and said there would be some money for that. With regards to insurance, your land. Land was there, you had a driveway, instead of now being a driveway, it's now 4.5 feet of a creek coming under property. This happens in multiple families are affected by this.
Right.
The earth moving, the land, the county, we don't move the creek ourselves. I mean,
Right.
it's just,
The insurers will always say, we don't insure the land. We only insure,
underneath the building.
right, we only insure the structure, we only insure the structure. Maybe they insure that, you can say and under your flood policy, they will cover attached structures, but not, like, so you won't have, like a walkway, deck, not covered. So they're not going to pay to regrade, they're not going to pay to,
Gain access back.
no,
Even if the creek's now where the driveway is.
I don't think so.
And outhouse is gone, so septic is gone.
Well, that they may pay for. No, septic, no. Septic, no. Septic, no. The outhouse, though, it probably yes. There's so many weird little, it's all because, the federal government took its best shot at providing a safety net that the private insurers decided they didn't want to do.
When the land underneath the home that is insured no longer exists.
Well, I mean, the question is whether you'll be able to rebuild there. I mean, it sounds to me like that's.
The cabin is still there.
Yeah.
It's the creek is now underneath.
Yeah. Well, if you're allowed to rebuild.
But it doesn't need to be rebuilt, the creek needs to be built in a foundation.
Yeah, well, if it's part of the structure and you can establish that it has to, the key words in the flood, with a flood policy for the coverage is it has to be direct damage. So if you can show that the flood directly damaged your foundation,
Oh, and it did.
then that should be in your scope of loss. That should be in your documented damages. Yeah.
How can this deadline come and go if there's absolutely no accessibility?
It seems ridiculous to me. I don't see, the question is how could they hold people to this deadline? And my instinct is, that Washington's been it's been so crazy with the shutdown that they really, they're just kept trying to play catch up with everything else. And I thought that we would see I thought we'd have seen an extension by now. I thought we would see some other developments with the flood program that we haven't seen, and I hope it's going to come.
Well, our adjuster was at our new house now, and we showed him pictures, and we got an advance. He just said, when you've got accessibility, let me know, I'll get an adjustment.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to indicate that we were going to run out of time.
Right. And by the way, and I want to give you a chance to talk, you mentioned an advance. You absolutely should, if you have flood insurance and you haven't gotten an advance, ask for one. They absolutely will give you a cash advance on what they owe, but you got to, with some of these guys, you have to ask for it. What did you want to say?
I was just going to say, I know with some homeowners policies, and I've heard, which is not, legal and in writing, but
Okay.
Thank you. With some homeowners policies, the clock doesn't start ticking until there's accessibility. I don't know how the federal flood insurance handles that, but regardless, there are things you can do even if you can't get back to your home. You remember your things. It's like when you have a total loss after a fire, which is what my history, I didn't experience it, but my community did. There's still things you can do to document your loss without being there. There's still things you can do to advance your cause and move forward every single day. And you may feel so overwhelmed by all the things you can't do or all the rules that seem to be getting in your way of checking things off your list. You just keep on the list and vision the end of getting back to where you were and do those things. If you know that on the second level of your house you had 3 bedrooms and each bedroom had stuff in it and you have contents coverage, then start working on that and proving what the value is. If that couch Amy talked about is 20 years old and they're going to say, well, the actual cash value of it is 0 because furniture depreciates in X amount of time and it no longer has value, you might be able to prove it was a Duncan Fife heirloom and it appreciated in value and you can get more money for it. So there are things you can do to advance your cause and to document your situation. If you don't have access, get copies from the county to prove that you don't have access back into your site so that you can show that if it comes into question. So I just wanted to encourage you in that.
Right, and I apologize for not having properly introduced Carrie Olivier. Carrie is our Colorado coordinator now. She had a partial loss from the Waldo Canyon wildfire in 2012, and she lives in Colorado Springs, and she is now working with our team. So thank you, Carrie. She's been doing a lot of work on home health, the home air quality, and related to, is your home safe to move back into? Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions. One being the deadline. I'm confused, I guess. The deadline on November 14th is just for FEMA and SBA. Is that correct? Or is it everything?
It's FEMA, SBA, and putting in a proof of loss for your flood insurance claim, if you have flood insurance.
Okay, so I do, and we're doing the adjusters, so we're going through that process.
Right.
So I guess.
You have Lloyd's. I'm sorry, you have Lloyd's of London? Oh, then the 60 days does not apply to you. Whatever their rules are. They're a private company, whatever their rules are.
The question is then, on the advance?
Yeah.
So with flood insurance, you have different categories. Dwelling, or other structures, I have additional living expenses. What does the advance come out of which bucket? I can't get an answer from anybody on that. Because
Well,
you have a maximum amount, and I want to make sure I don't max out on my certain category.
it really probably won't matter. I mean,
It's to be determined.
generally the advance, right.
Take out of that bucket.
Okay, it depends.
I have all these expenses, it's like, okay,
Right.
I put in, what do I put towards so I know I'm not maxing, I don't know.
Well, you want to max out in all the categories, right? You want, if you feel like, you look at your limits, your dwelling limit, your contents limit, and see where you think you might be over, and then find the category where you think you might be under, and then try to get the advance assigned to the one where you think you might be under. Sure. Yeah. Say I want an advance on my, I'm not as familiar with the Lloyd's policy, so I don't know how many buckets they have. A lot.
It's good.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
We got a check from FEMA for so much, and it was combined with the rental.
Okay.
Now, if we cash the check, are we required to have flood insurance?
So I think this question is, you got an individual assistance grant. Is that correct? And what I heard from the FEMA representative this morning was that, yes, you are required to keep flood insurance on that property if you've accepted a grant from them.
Okay, now, how do they decide how much insurance I have to pay as opposed to somebody else?
We don't even know what zone.
You don't know yet.
Yeah.
You don't know. I mean, it's usually the bank that requires you to put the insurance in place, right? So how they police, how FEMA is going to police it, that's a great question to ask them. Sure.
So if somebody has flood insurance, they can also apply for individual assistance because they are giving grants for replacement or towards access under individual assistance.
Right. You have to show that you have insurance gaps. You have to show, just the fact that you have some insurance isn't going to just qualify you from getting an individual assistance grant, but you're going to have to do the paperwork and show them where you're short. Yes?
Anybody that may have had their address changed by the county in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, whatever that term was, be careful if you get a amount of money sent to you by your insurance company, because when the insurance company sent me my check, then they started looking back into the policy, and I had an address 5 years ago that's different than it is now, same house, and they pulled that $5,000 check. And now I didn't write checks on the check they sent me, but I could have very easily. That would put me in more hot water.
All right, so does anybody have any questions they want to ask Suzanne before we wrap up? Yes, ma'am.
I can talk a little bit about the floodplain limbo that we are all in.
Right.
And the county's working really, really hard to figure out what we're going to do about this problem. You know, the county participates in the National Flood Insurance Program. That's our choice. That's Larimer County's choice. And what the federal government says, if you want to participate in this program, you play by our rules. And our rules are that you establish a floodplain, and then you manage development in that floodplain. Well, as you all know, we don't know where our floodplain is anymore because the river's moved in places. And elevations of the channel bed have changed. So we don't know what to administer to anymore. And when I say we, I mean Larimer County. We don't know what to do and stay in compliance with that program. We can't be out of compliance with the program, or else we lose our ability to participate and nobody can hold their flood insurance anymore. So we are now, as I'm speaking, arranging meetings with FEMA and the state and the National Flood Insurance Program to get some direction on what are we supposed to be doing to administer this program. Are we going to remap the floodplain? And believe me, that takes a while. That takes years to do that. And I'm sorry to say that. That doesn't sound good to a lot of people, but we don't know what to do at this point. We don't have direction, and it's not our call, Larimer County, it's not our call to make. We have to be told what to do to stay in compliance with the federal program. So those are not our rules. We're just administering it.
So what are we to do?
We don't know what to do, and I can't tell you.
As an individual, I'm depending on you because you're an official.
And I'm depending on the state and the federal government to tell us what to do.
But if I cash that check, I have to go by whose way?
Yeah, I don't understand that relationship with the check.
I don't have an answer for you either, but having just gone through something that felt an awful lot like this several times, because we lost over 350 homes within a mile of my house a year and a half ago, and then almost exactly a year later was 500 homes a few miles from my house. And I had already fortunately found United Policyholders about 6 months into the process of our neighborhood trying to get answers. And FEMA didn't have much involvement in our community because we didn't qualify for assistance. It wasn't a flood, it was a fire. And but what we have found over time is you have to do a combination of hurry up and wait, but don't stop moving forward. So some of your answers won't be available yet. I mean, there is a process, and our government was just shut down, which doesn't help, right? There is a process, and it's a hierarchy that you have to move through. There's the city, there's the county, there's the state, there's FEMA. The information and the need, the request for need goes up the ladder, and then eventually, hopefully with enough persistence and political support, the aid comes back down the ladder, the answers come back down the ladder and get distributed, and you get your answers, and you get whatever is going to be ultimately available to you. And it may not be enough to completely put you back where you were, but there are a lot of resources that no one ever takes advantage of because they don't, they don't communicate enough, they don't seek the information enough, and so there are some things that will be readily and obvious to everyone, and there are other forms of aid through the government or otherwise that are not as obvious. And if you keep looking for answers like this, communicate with each other and through the county with whatever services are available to you to find that money. Get on the FEMA website or get someone to help you get on the FEMA website and click on everything and see what you can find.
That's the problem. We're in a generation that we are face to face. We are not in electronic age.
I understand.
We understand. And we are going to,
yes, ma'am.
Not the last workshop.
All we want to know is, shall we cash that check?
Yes.
And if we have to take flood insurance and we take it, can we drop it? Or do we have to?
Those answers are going to have to come from FEMA, and you're going to have to keep pressing until you can get them because no one else has the authority but them.
They can't get it up on the computer with it. They're in a high risk, but they don't know what zone we're in. They can't put it up.
No, and they're not going to be able to tell you what zone you're in. But let me tell you,
Limbo for a time. It's not forever, though.
I can understand that. I was going to tell you what we are doing. So I told you we're having the meeting. I understand your frustration, and believe me, we have a whole county building full of frustrated people over there.
I bet you do.
We do. So we're trying to find out as quickly as possible what is going to come down. What are we supposed to be doing to administer the floodplain? So that's one thing we're going to get out with press releases. We'll put it in the newspaper when we find out. We'll put it up on our website, so there'll be other ways to get it. There's also, I'm going to call a bunch of people up here who don't want to come up here right now, but I am going to ask, so that the cameras can see you, the Mountain Outreach team to come up here. So this is, just hold on a second. This is a group of people. If you could just walk up here so I can make sure the cameras catch you. Mountain Outreach team, and correct me if I say something wrong, Darlene, is funded by a grant from the federal government. These people are going to be your lifeline to information, as well as the county website and myself as the recovery manager. These people are going to be will be in your community, finding ways to get in touch with you and distributing all sorts of information from me, information from the county. So thank you very much for coming up here. They'll be in Estes Park, they'll be in Loveland, they'll be all over, and they'll be a source of information. And
how do we know where they are?
They'll be finding you. They'll be setting up offices if they haven't already.
There should be a link on the flood recovery website. And last year, we also, myself and another team member, Derek, who right now is in Estes, we were part of the Hyde Park Woodland Heights Fire Mountain Outreach team. So we are familiar with the program and getting resources and networking. Because of the magnitude of the flood, we now have 3 teams in Larimer County, 3 teams of 6, plus a manager, plus a data person. And so we'll be able to cover the areas more. Plus, there's there's different teams in Weld County, Boulder County, Aurora, Colorado Springs, Logan, all over this because of the magnitude of this flood. So we will have an office in Fort Collins today. We just acquired a space at the Foothills Mall, north of the mall in the Foothills Commons. That it's the same place we had one for the Mountain Outreach Team and the long-term recovery case management last year that Darlene was with. So we will be attending everything related to the floods, any kind of workshops, any kind of presentations. We'll collect resources. We will have those for people down the road who missed this. We will have all this information. We will acquire multiple books and the flash drives to hand out for people that didn't make it to this. And we will have brochures and flyers. We just started. Like, we just got the grant from FEMA and SAMHSA. Derek and I hired 14, 15, 18 people, and we don't even have our colors will be royal blue, will be branded, so you'll see us at events. We're going to be at Beat Street on Saturday night for the Umbrella Project. We are emotional support, as well as we're here to just support you in the long term. We're going to be around for the whole next year, at least until next October, so we're not going anywhere. And when you guys have things that come up like not being computer literate, that helps us to know that, so we can think maybe we need to have computers available in workshops, or maybe just assistance, have people sit with people who don't know how to get on the FEMA website and just help them through that. So that's part of our thing, is just finding out what the communities need, and then we go to help find those resources and support for the long term. We'll have a link, and we have flyers with we're out. Can we make copies here? More flyers?
We ran out of English ones.
Okay,
We can see about getting copies.
we'll see if we can make more copies, and if you can give them to your neighbors as well. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is to reach everybody, and there are so many thousands this time of people that were affected. For the Hyde Park fire, it was 19,000. For this, it is way more than that. I don't even know what the number is.
We signed in, when you use that, be able to contact.
Yeah, if you allow that, then sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we're happy to share.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So if you didn't sign up, please do. Again, I want to thank the county and the Mountain Outreach Team. I want to thank Larimer County, Suzanne Bassinger, the recovery manager, the Mountain Outreach Team, and all of you for taking the time to show up and sharing information with your neighbors. Good luck. We're rooting for you.